Hey guys, what's going on? Blaine back for another Netflix review, and today I'm going to be talking about Reclaim. Reclaim is a Taiwanese drama that tells the story of lan-hsin, an art teacher who seems to have everything going well for her at first glance. She's married to a faithful husband, has ambitious children, and is on the verge of retirement from her job as an art teacher, but not all is as well as it appears. She finds herself shouldering most of her family members' responsibilities and also has to cope with her mother's ongoing dementia. She decides to search for a new place to live so that she can have more space and ability to organize her affairs, and in doing so she attempts to reclaim her identity. I have to be upfront and say that I'm probably not the best person to review this movie, as I didn't understand everything presented in it, but I was able to finish it, so I'll try to give as best of an opinion as I can. It's one of those brooding types of dramas that's deliberately slow with its plot progression and character development. This is a double-edged sword, as it makes a story confusing and boring for long stretches of time, but when it works, it does a phenomenal job at highlighting the struggles of family life from a woman's perspective. lan-hsin, I hope I'm pronouncing her name right, was a good protagonist to carry the story, and is easily the most interesting part of the movie. She's a multi-layered character who has to wear a lot of hats, between being a wife, a mother, and a worker all at once. Her relatable background makes it easy to sympathize with her, especially when she's continually bossed around by her husband and children. Whether it had something to do with paperwork or something as simple as just putting milk back in the fridge, her family never took any agency and always left lan-hsin to pick up after themselves. She's bossed around so much that it's hard not to take pity on her, yet she carries on with her duties as a housewife with a smile on her face while bottling up her emotions. She longs for a way to escape her circumstances, which is evident between her search for a new house and her desire to travel the world, and honestly, I can't really blame her. The only place where she can escape to is her art studio where she hosts classes, and even then she has to deal with the stress of working with students as well as the moment being temporary before she returns to her mundane life. Her feelings follow her wherever she goes, and her actress is fantastic in the subtle way she communicates them. Where the movie starts to falter in my view are the other characters surrounding lan-hsin, the most notable of which is her mother. Maybe there was something I was missing from the movie, but to me she seemed more like a background character as opposed to being directly involved in the story's events. The dynamic the two women share with each other is nice to see, as it's clear that lan-hsin's mother had a profound influence on her, but it's not explored all that much beyond flashback scenes of them having fun together, and the mother spends the rest of the movie in a comatose state. lan-hsin visits her mother quite a bit, so it's good that their connection remains consistent, but nothing much interesting happens with these two outside of the flashbacks, which is how she gradually realizes how to reclaim herself. Maybe someone in the comments can help me understand a bit better, but to me there wasn't much to pick away from it. Many other characters interact with lan-hsin throughout the movie as well, though most of it occurs in the home where she, her husband David, and her stepdaughter Qianning stay. This is where much of the movie's thematic content comes into play, as the audience gets to see the psychological impact they all have on her. Her son Qiaoyu tells her to book flight tickets, David insists on watching a TV show he wants to see, and Qianning can't be bothered to go downstairs to pick up a mail delivery. These things seem minor at first glance, but when they add up over time, one can see how much they truly affect lan-hsin. No one in the household demonstrates any sort of gratitude, and instead just kind of carry on with their day doing whatever it is they do. There's a realistic vibe in the way the story's presented, and it's balanced well with the hectic nature of the home as more people come and go. I know I already mentioned this, but the little things really help make this movie stand out. The way David plays around with a VR setup, the Richard Gere show that lan-hsin watches at night, even the conversations people have about random things are curiously entertaining. There's just something about this slice of life aspect to the movie that makes it more intriguing. Outside of the family, there are other characters who start appearing out of nowhere and hanging out of the house. This is when the plot starts to become more convoluted, as I didn't entirely understand what their role was to the story at hand. And the downside to the movie's realistic presentation is that it can be really boring. There's a large number of scenes with aimless conversations and sometimes no dialogue at all, and this results in the pacing slowing to a crawl. Now, most of these scenes are done this way on purpose, as they're meant to show lan-hsin meditating over her situation and how she's going to try to find a new place to live. It is satisfying to see her reach a conclusion once it finally happens, but it takes a long time for everything else beforehand to get going. I'm probably going to get chewed out for saying this, but there were moments where I tuned out for minutes at a time simply because there was nothing compelling happening on screen, and when my attention returned, it still didn't feel like there was any sort of progression happening. Again, things do ramp up more during the final act, but the build-up leading beginning to it left a lot to be desired. The movie does shake things up a little bit by showing how much effort Ye Lan-hsin puts into searching for a new home. Lots of factors are examined, such as how much money they cost, all the different rooms and features, and how she's going to use them to benefit her mother and the rest of her family. While this attention to detail is admirable and I do empathize with her struggle in this regard, I still found it to be pretty dull in the long run. I think most people can agree that house hunting isn't the most exciting thing to do in one's day, and dedicating half a movie around this concept isn't exactly riveting. As tedious as some of this movie's elements may be, they all have a shared purpose in that they contribute to Ye Lan-hsin's search for and need to reclaim the identity she's lost as a woman, as well as with how she needs the space to make room for all the baggage she has in her life, both figuratively and literally. The movie's lighthearted presentation definitely helped out in this regard. Even though the topics are heavy, they're balanced out by colorful cinematography and an upbeat orchestral soundtrack. It almost felt like I was feeling lighter along with Ye Lan-hsin as she started to reclaim herself. So I ultimately feel conflicted as to what I truly think about this movie. Everything about it does work, but it's not executed in the most engaging way. Perhaps that was the point, to sort of represent how flat Ye Lan-hsin's life had become, but there were still parts about it that could have been better executed. Overall, Reclaim is an interesting drama that examines the way women's identities gradually change through their families, but it's far from captivating in its approach. If you like dramas that examine family-oriented topics and you don't mind stories that proceed slowly and don't always make sense, you might enjoy checking this out. The main character is certainly fascinating, and the attention to detail surrounding the slice of life aspect is awesome, but its extremely slow pace and jumbled story kept me from appreciating it more. If there's anyone who'd like to fill me in on any details from the movie I missed, I'd appreciate your feedback. And on that note, what do you think about this movie? Did you also find the main character engaging, or was the story too slow and boring for you to follow along with? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways guys, that's going to wrap up my review of Reclaim. Thanks for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it, and as always stay tuned for the next part, where next time I review the American action sci-fi horror flick, Prey. Bye bye!